situation, despite the expressions of desire for peace now. And I think it will enhance the prospects for a deal with the Syrians, for example, but that will in turn make politics within Israel that much more dangerous.
That's an interesting point. But you say metaphorically a civil war. I mean, there are some people who think that this could actually erupt into a real civil war. You agree with that?
No, but Rabin was taking Israel on a course that half the country thought was disastrous, dangerous, misbegotten, on the slimmest of majorities. And Peres, who is the new prime minister, has never been able to win a nationwide election in Israel's history. He is not liked. He is not trusted. And he has his advantage now as prime minister, of course, is that he now is a martyr. And the martyrdom of Rabin will probably, at least in the short run, bring the country together and give a boost to the peace process that was Rabin's legacy. But it is still going to be a question whether Peres is the man who can be trusted to deal with the Arabs. He is known as a soft-liner. He is known as somebody who wants to capitulate on every important issue.
It was interesting, wasn't it? In reading all about this morning, I had to be reminded or informed, I'm not sure which, that about the vote in the Knesset, which was just a couple of votes by which the peace process, by which the peace accord passed. So there's a pretty decent indication.
Yeah, I mean,
of the
can
split.
you imagine something of that moment? It's so important happening in this country by just a couple of votes.
Well,
I mean,
we know with lots of examples where, the president would have to have, a two-thirds vote, so this was pretty slim. But
right, but in fact, I think it's important the president has to have a two-thirds vote.
Well, that's another issue. But as I was coming here tonight, I was recalling that I think I was in high school, a couple of us were in high school, Mona was probably in second or third grade at the time, and the Six-Day War, which is, what, 67, and then subsequent years, you've got everything from a ton of terrorism, you've got Sadat being murdered, you've got Jamal in Lebanon, and they have proved rather resilient. I mean, the peace process may be rather resilient. And then you've got, I gather, coming to Israel for the first time for the funeral, Mubarak of Egypt. So there's rather a dramatic change taking place.
But it's interesting they won't let Arafat in.
No, it's not that they won't let him. I actually think, from my understanding of it, is that he would certainly not have minded coming. It's that it was thought the better part of wisdom not to inflame the right wing by having Arafat at that funeral. But you have to understand the political context of this. Just within the last couple of months, the so-called Oslo II agreement was reached, in which now many of the settlements, the Jewish settlements on the West Bank, are going to have to be vacated. This, in the eyes of the people who think that Judea and Samaria are part of Greater Israel, is traitorism. And in my view, it's not.
Treason.
I mean, treason.
I like your word.
Traitorism, I just...
Jim Baker was saying on Brinkley this morning, that's the kind of language we have to get away from, people talking about each other as treasonous and murderers and that kind of business. But it seems to me that the genius of Rabin was that he was able to really advance this notion of land for peace, to make this real in Israeli politics. And he was able to do so because of his reputation as someone who's been a warrior.
Because of his actual background.
Only a soldier could do that.
But sometimes, of course, we personalize events a little bit too much, especially when someone is assassinated. But I thought it was interesting that Henry Kissinger, in just a remarkable interview that was on CNN today, talked about how he felt that Rabin would, in fact, bring the country along, that he had the vision, and he knew that over time he could bring the country along. But now, without him, who's going to do it, Mona?
Well, that was my point, is that it's very unclear to me that Peres has either the stature or the background to do it.
But clearly not Peres, but then who?
Well, nobody else is going to be in a position to do it.
Well,
I mean, the Likud doesn't want to do it. There's nobody else in the Labor Party.
Well, that's interesting. Do you think the Likud might, I mean, in an incredible reversal, might decide that
Look, the Likud is not
it may
against
change
peace.
its position?
I mean, that's the rap that you hear in the United States all the time, that the Likud is opposed to peace. And of course, it is a reasonable dispute among reasonable people whether this peace accord was the right way to go.
You have to understand that they're living in a small country that's been surrounded by a sea of hate for 50 years. I'm amazed that there hasn't been this kind of internal violence in Israel until this time. Rabin, in certain respects, was the last of the old heroes. He was a Sabra. He was born before Israel was created. He was a great soldier. He was a great diplomat. Surely there will be others. It's just, I think, if this pushes the peace process ahead, which I think it may, they have to, the diplomats have to be very careful not to push it too far.
Let's bring Jim in here.
No, I mean, at the risk of sounding a bit naive in distinction to what Mona, in contrast to what Mona said, I mean, I just have a sense if you step back in a larger historical perspective, you might make the argument that these folks are on a path which is going to lead them ultimately.
Well, can I just say a word about
what would have thought was impossible 10, 20 years ago?
It is not just Israel that is making peace. In order to make peace, you have to have two sides. And the problem that the Likud sees is that Arafat has said one thing to Western audiences and has said quite a different thing to Arab audiences ever since these accords have been signed.
Okay, so that's a good point. How does the assassination of Rabin really affect Arafat?
Well, I think Arafat is really left now kind of floating. He's looking for someone to make a deal with, and he needs somebody inside of Israel to act in this way that Rabin had been acting. Now, the deal really, I think, is that you are underestimating what Perez can do. And I think next year, for the first time in Israel, they're going to have direct elections of the prime minister for the first time. He can call an election quickly and through that get some cover for more peace efforts, and I think push the process forward as the idealist. And there wasn't room for that.
Okay, one quick word from Jim.
Well, a quick word is it's a question. It's one name we haven't mentioned at this point, and that's Assad of Syria, who obviously ain't showing up at the funeral and is most ambiguous figure in all of this. I mean, we'll have to speculate what his relationship is with Perez or anybody else.
Okay, and that's the last word. And coming next, will conservatives scare Colin Powell out of running?
In today's business world, it's not uncommon to shell out a significant investment only to come up empty, or to find out your chances weren't as good as they once seemed. Well, for a limited time, Fortune magazine is going to give you a free shot at success. No tricks. Just call this toll-free number right now, and you'll get 3 issues of Fortune free. That means a free look at the most insightful, in-depth, and in-step business publication of our time. A free look at the hottest trends, the biggest success stories, and the people who make it all happen. If Fortune isn't for you, simply cancel and pay nothing. The 3 free issues are yours to keep with no further obligation. But if you like what you see, you will save over 50% off the newsstand price on your special trial subscription. That's 15 more issues, 18 in all. Issues like the celebrated Fortune 500 and Fortune's Annual Investor's Guide, all for 4 monthly payments of only $9.87. Call now, and with your paid subscription, you'll also get the Fortune Portfolio, absolutely free. The Fortune Portfolio puts the office at your fingertips. It's a handsome briefcase with convenient pockets that hold all your important papers. Inside, it features a full-function calculator, a telephone address book for listing key business contacts, and a handy writing set. It's perfect for business trips, meetings, and seminars. So no matter where your business takes you, you'll have everything you need. Best of all, the Fortune Portfolio is yours free. Call now for your free look at Fortune magazine. You'll enjoy over 50% savings on your trial subscription. You'll get the Fortune Portfolio free. And even if you decide Fortune isn't for you, you'll get to keep your free issues. You just can't lose. Get 3 free issues, over 50% savings, and the Fortune Portfolio free. So call right now and take a free shot at success.
Welcome back. In an effort to stop Colin Powell from joining the Republican presidential race, conservative leaders got together this week to vilify him.
He was an exemplary millocrat who got where he is today by carefully courting those who have held the strings of power in this town over many decades.
I do not believe that Colin Powell is the savior of the Republican Party. It doesn't need a savior. He's the savior of the status quo.
But not all GOP conservatives are taking shots at Powell. One prominent conservative wants him, if not in the race, at least in the party.
One thing I will say, I hope that he declares that he is a Republican. I want him in the Republican Party. I think he'd be good for the Republican Party.
Howard, do you think these conservatives, before I ask you that, I love that word, millocrat, that Weirich used. But anyway, do you think these conservatives are going to stop Powell?
Well, they think Powell is an exemplar of traitorism. No.
That millocrat, that traitorous millocrat?
Traitorism. Yes. Well, listen, if Colin Powell is running, he's violating the first rule of military intelligence, which is to understand the enemy and understand the terrain. He has made no effort, really, and I know this having talked to virtually all those people and more that you saw in that press conference, to even find out how many troops they have, how many people they represent. Are they as important as they seem to be standing there in the press club? No. But are they a real force in the Republican Party? Yes. And I think they've had the vehemence of what they were saying has resounded within the, out to the basement in McLean we keep talking about, and has made an impression on Powell.
Has it? I think it might even push him in. I don't know him, but you know him. What do you think?
I disagree with you, Howard. I think, in fact, those people don't represent much. I think David Keene and Grover Norquist are, you know, I mean, it's not to say that they don't represent anybody, but they represent a point of view more so than troops. And I think what you're seeing here is the far right.
How many divisions does Grover Norquist have?
Really. The far right really killing itself off. I mean, the idea that they say Colin Powell is not tough enough on gun control, he just wants the Brady bill. Oh, gee, we can't stand that. Or they say he's not tough enough on abortion.
The gun control people weren't at that press conference.
Right, okay. They say he's not tough enough on abortion. The guy's not going to spend any federal money on abortion. I mean, they are making themselves way, way over there on the far right. I mean, they're isolating themselves as loonies.
There's the real world, and then there are the Republican primaries. But anyway, go ahead.
Isolating themselves as loonies.
I guess I'm on the side of loonies tonight. Not for the first time.
Do you think they vilified him, by the way?
No, I don't think they vilified him. I think that's too strong. Look, they weren't as diplomatic as perhaps they might have been in the language they selected, but I think their essential point is that Colin Powell represents a threat because he does have this immense popularity. That seems like a paradox, but the fact is, if he were elected as the first black U.S. president, that would bring a certain kind of moral stature. He also has great charisma. That would put him in a position to make deals with the Democrats in Congress, who, after all, still have a sizable number of seats, as well as the moderate Republicans, who are still a problem from some points of view, and thwart what the conservative Republicans would like to accomplish. That is the serious problem for the Republican Revolution.
Two things.
Jim.
I think I agree with Juan. I mean, these guys just strike me. I mean, I don't know where a lot of them would be if there weren't C-SPAN and CNN talk shows. I mean, I don't know how many members they have. Hey, I got a day gig. It takes me long enough. So, I mean, it strikes me more sort of like a, you know, small thumb-sucking subset of, you know, the supposed Republican revolution. But let me now switch.
Go ahead.
Here's this tie into our first segment. There's been a lot of stuff written in the last few weeks about Powell's wife, Alma, and some of it may be unseemly about fits of depression, all that. But one of the things we've read about is her apparently warning him, you know, not to get in because there might be some wacko who takes a shot at you. What do you think things were like at the Powell house in McLean last night? Because he apparently was very close friends of Rabin. I mean, how do you think that might play into all this?
I don't know. What do you think, Juan?
Well, I think that Alan Powell clearly feels that any black person who gets out there and has high profile of the kind that Powell would be subject to threat, and not only from right-wing extremists, but even left-wing extremists who might not be pleased with Powell's record. So, I mean, I think that's very real, but I don't think it's going to stop Powell from running. I think right now that's the conventional wisdom around town, is that Alma Powell is the big stumbling block. I don't think she's the big stumbling block. I think the stumbling block is actually Powell, in and of himself, deciding whether or not he can win. He doesn't want to lose.
But it was your magazine that brought up this business about Alma Powell's medication, which, frankly, I just think has no place in any magazine, even Newsweek. But is it going to deter him from running? That's an interesting question.
Well, we felt it was justified and valid in bringing it up, first of all, because it was already in print, but even more important, since that's no justification in and of itself. Clearly, his decision-making process involves his wife, her opinion, her peace of mind, her health. We had plenty of discussions with the Powell camp about what could be said, what was accurate to be said about the fact that she takes medication and has for a long time.
It was just unspecified health problems.
No, look.
Okay,
look,
okay.
If the guy is running for president, if he declares for president, everything in his life and his family's life is an open book.
All right, but I think what's interesting, I don't know who you got this story. I don't know who you got the story from, but clearly someone was trying to chase him out of the race. I mean, my guess would be it either came from the White House or it came from some Republican who didn't want him in the race,
quite honestly, I don't know where it came from.
So somebody's scared. There are a lot of people who are scared about Colin Powell running.
Can I say why you shouldn't be scared?
Quickly.
I mean, I don't think that even if he runs, he will get the nomination, because I think that presidential politics requires a certain level of experience in politics. He would make, as a newcomer, a lot of mistakes. I think he's made some already. He isn't in tune with primary voters. And for all his charisma and all of his stature,
whiz.
I don't think
Yeah,
he could be
and you know why you
successful.
say that, Mona? Because all of your Republican candidates are doing so well. You know why Colin Powell's even in this thing? Because none of the Republicans have even broken
that.
Okay, hold
I
on,
don't
hold on.
dispute
We got to
that.
go. We got to go. Except Jim Warren's going to tell us if he's going to run or not. Quick, is he going to run?
No.
All right, coming next, is it time to get rid of the CIA?
When's the last time you tried Ovaltine?
I had Ovaltine last night because I was in the mood for a good tasting chocolate drink. It's just a rich, creamy, chocolatey taste.
Great tasting Ovaltine contains 10 essential vitamins and minerals and no fat, no cholesterol, and is 99% caffeine free.
You want great taste, but you also want to take care of yourself and get the nutritional value. With Ovaltine, you can get both.
Ovaltine tastes great, and it's great for you.
People love good food, flavored with garlic, onions, and spices. But it happens, bad breath. I can eat what I want because of Breath Assure, the internal breath freshener. Gargles, sprays, and gums, nah, MIDI cover-ups. All natural Breath Assure is long-lasting. Swallow a few of these powerful capsules that work from the inside. Be sure. Breath Assure.
To order Breath Assure for $19.95, call 800-257-1257. Call now. That's 800-257-1257.
Billy, what's wrong?
I can't get this math.
Never before in America and in no other country in the world has it been easier to get top grades in math. How? The answer is Math Made Easy videotapes. Basic math, high school math, or college math, all tested and proven instructional videotapes just for you. If you need top grades in math, Math Made Easy tutoring tapes are a must. Used by educators all over America. It's like having your own professional tutor at your side. Follow the thousands of students who have gained confidence and have prepared for A's in math. Select the tapes you need. Call now for details on the free brochure. Dial 1-800-MATH-962. Parents or grandparents, now's the time to help a student in your family.
Mom, I got an A. That's great.
Math Made Easy tutoring tapes are guaranteed. Call now for more information. Dial 1-800-MATH-962. That's 1-800-MATH-962.
Forget Paris is the summer's funniest romantic comedy. This is Billy Crystal at his best. Touching, funny, unforgettable. Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs up. Forget Paris. Rated PG-13.
The players. The stories. The history. The drama. The moments. The miracles. The Braves. The Braves, an illustrated history of America's team. Now in bookstores everywhere.
With every speech, every promise, and every surprise, CNN will be there every step of the way. And for a daily wrap-up, watch Inside Politics and Inside Politics Weekend on CNN.
Welcome back. CIA Director John Deutsch revealed new fallout this week from the treason of Aldrich Ames.
Sensitive intelligence reporting that the CIA knew was tainted and was passed on to policymakers of this country, on which they relied to some extent. It is an inexcusable lapse in elementary intelligence practice.
The CIA Inspector General's report recommended that 3 CIA directors be held accountable: William Webster, Robert Gates, and James Woolsey. But Deutsch decided against any reprimand, which brought tough response from Capitol Hill.
A new standard of accountability, in my judgment, is being applied. We just didn't know. If you don't know, it's not apparently true that you're going to be held accountable for your actions. Well, they should have known. All 3 of them should have known.
James Warren, is it time? Why don't we just call it quits? Just scrap the CIA.
Well, that's what Senator Moynihan of New York thinks. There's a long litany of problems you can point to. I mean, these guys over the last 10, 15 years, misjudged the fall of communism and misjudged the rise of Islamic fundamentalism. They've been involved in tawdry human rights abuses in Central America. They were building that $200 or $300 million building without anybody knowing it in Virginia, and then comes Ames. And since January of '94 or so, we've learned that this guy compromised something like, I don't know, 100 then current or prospective agents. 9 or 10 subsequently died as a result of that. And then we learned this week that apparently there was a direct cause and effect between lousy information given to the Pentagon and the White House, between that and actual military procurement decisions. For example, we're going to spend something like $2 billion in the next year or so on research for an F-22 fighter jet, and this comes directly, apparently, from erroneous information about the threat of the Soviet Union. I think Deutsch now has a real problem. Deutsch got a real problem. When we were growing up, you know, the CIA seemed kind of mysterious, maybe a little dark, tad evil, but competent. Now they've got a problem with an institution, I think, increasingly, and not just on Capitol Hill, is seen as incompetent.
So, yeah, and Deutsch was pleading in the Washington Post today in an op-ed piece about, you know, let me reform the CIA. But, I mean, we've heard that before.
We've heard it before, but in fact, I mean, there's an argument to be made that in the post-Cold War era, you've got the need for a CIA. The question is, how does it work? It's got to deal with lots of these regional conflicts. It's also got to deal with increased pressure now for sort of business spying, you know, going into Japan or into France, looking at how business is working, making sure that we stay in touch. But there is a need for intelligence. I don't think anyone is going to say, even Jim Warren, that we don't need intelligence in this current world. And the question is, how do we go about getting it in some way where we don't play games and don't allow them to hide behind the facade out of Langley?
I think we've been getting it from elsewhere than the CIA for a long time. In many respects, the CIA has been a shell of an institution for years, ever since the Congress first opened up the Pandora's box in the early 70s.
Do you think that caused the problem, or?
I think the fact that they are basically a creature of the Congress, and Deutsch is a creature of the Congress, makes it impossible for a spy agency to function with the deniability given to the administrators that, in essence, you need to run a spy operation. It's a total conflict. You can't have an open book in a spy agency at the same time. You just can't.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine a more tawdry use for the CIA in the post-Cold War world than to be spying for General Motors and Chrysler at Japanese car makers, which is what has happened.
And sure did a great job.
Yeah, right. It won't help them in any case. But
So what do you think about scrapping the CIA, or at least maybe having a commission to look at it?
No, I don't think we should scrap the CIA, because I think we still need information. We need information about who has nuclear bombs, then who has the delivery systems to get them to us, which is nuclear proliferation being the biggest threat we face in the post-Cold War world. But clearly we need greater accountability. The people who did this, and these were mid-level bureaucrats apparently, who, not wanting to reveal that their sources within the Soviet Union had been turned by the KGB, continued to send the information along.
Just become a useless bureaucracy.
Speaking of traitorism, I mean, that's it. I mean, if these people...
So, Howard, what do you think?
Into the language at the end of this show.
Do you think it ought to be scrapped, turned upside down?
It's a useless bureaucracy. The real action in intelligence is where it began in World War II, in Enigma, in the code-breaking project that really won the war, not a bunch of spies running around in raincoats. And that's where the action is, and it's not even at the CIA now.
I'm just surprised to hear you say, I just don't understand how you can have a view of the world that doesn't say, listen, we need to know what's going on, and we need it more. We need to understand these racial and ethnic conflicts. We need to understand what's happening here and there. And we need industrial espionage on some level. I think you see the military now combining and trying to do it in a different way. I agree, but how can you say we don't need any of it?
We may need a different institution to do it. You know, I mean, Peter Drucker, the great management guru, once said that if you had 3 people who were running something, you know, in succession, and none of the 3 can get it right, then maybe there's something wrong with the institution itself. And unfortunately, that's it for Capital Gang Sunday tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
This is the place for conversation about issues that concern us all. This is CNN.
"50 years of the United Nations."
One of the oldest agencies in the United Nations system far predates the UN's own founding 50 years ago. The International Telecommunication Union began in the 19th century with the advent of the latest invention, the telegraph. Founded in 1865 as the International Telegraph Union, the ITU promotes and regulates international communications. Its responsibilities grew in tandem with the technological advances of the age. From this simple machine began a revolution in communication that, with the UN's help, continues into the 21st century.
Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. If you can. No need for greed or hunger. Greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man.
Not so long ago, 3 million children a year died from measles, diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough, polio, and tuberculosis. Today, thanks to the United Nations, 80% of the world's children have been immunized against those diseases. Now that's something to sing about.
This is CNN.
This is a CNN special presentation.
Israelis struggle with the anguish and anxiety of losing the man who led them through war and towards peace. World leaders embark on a mission of mourning. Many remember Yitzhak Rabin as a partner in peace.
This is not a prophet who came out of the wilderness with an insight that nobody had. He learned like his people did, and like his people will have to.
His Excellency Yitzhak Rabin.
Looking beyond the man to the mission, where does Israel go from here? I'm Porter Anderson. Welcome to our viewers in the U.S. and around the world to this CNN special edition. In just a few hours, the funeral procession for assassinated Israeli leader Yitzhak Rabin will begin in Jerusalem. Supporters gathered throughout the night to pay homage to the warrior turned statesman. As mourners passed the casket, many prayed the Middle East peace process would not be laid to rest with their prime minister. A new picture of the confessed killer is also emerging. CNN's Brent Sadler reports.
The first appearance in court of the man who claims to have assassinated Yitzhak Rabin. Yigal Amir, the 25-year-old law student, confessed to the crime at a preliminary hearing, but the case against him has barely begun. His brother was also arrested and is being questioned about the murder. The number one suspect was surrounded by guards, deluged by news teams. Israelis already know much about this man. The same Yigal Amir who was heckling Mr. Rabin during a public appearance only 2 months ago. The same man who slipped through Mr. Rabin's security net with apparent ease and who police are as yet unconvinced that he acted alone.
They will find out what exactly motivated him, but he did not hide anything. I mean, he said that I understood that Rabin betrayed his country and I decided to take his life.
After his arrest, Yigal Amir admitted that he'd been stalking the Prime Minister, had twice planned to kill him, and would have shot Shimon Peres if the two leaders had left the Tel Aviv peace rally together. He displayed yet another sign of public disturbance 3.5 months ago. Yigal Amir dragged away by police from a Jewish settlers' encampment on a disputed hilltop. The plan to exchange land for peace with the Palestinians, far from his agenda. The assassination has struck at the heart of Jewish fears about security, and it's unnerved those Palestinians who are committed to the peace process. The question which now looms is whether Shimon Peres, the acting Prime Minister, can pick up the pieces, restore confidence, and carry on the peace mission alone. Brent Sadler, CNN, Jerusalem.
The funeral for Prime Minister Rabin will be carried live on CNN. Our extended coverage begins in about 2 hours, 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, that's 1100 GMT. A spokesman says PLO chief Yasser Arafat will not attend the funeral because of political and security reasons. Arafat expressed shock at the tragedy and says he hopes the peace process will continue. But not everyone is unhappy about Mr. Rabin's assassination. Some Arabs cheered at the news of his death, saying the former soldier deserved such an end. President Bill Clinton has arrived in Israel leading a large U.S. delegation to Mr. Rabin's funeral. He and the First Lady traveled from Washington on the same plane with former U.S. Presidents George Bush and Jimmy Carter. Several current and former cabinet members and members of Congress from both political parties are also part of that delegation. Former President Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy are unable to attend funeral services for the fallen Israeli leader. They have asked former Secretary of State George Shultz to go on their behalf. Israelis by the hundreds of thousands will have paid their last respects to Yitzhak Rabin before his state funeral. The young, the middle-aged, the elderly, all who had shared in his life and goals paid homage. Their mourning was in the Jewish tradition. Mr. Rabin's state funeral is expected to be the largest ever conducted in the Jewish state. The former head of Israel's Secret Service is calling for a government investigation into the assassination. Specifically, the ex-security chief wants to know how the gunman was able to get so close to the prime minister. Meantime, other officials remain stunned that this apparently was the work of a Jewish extremist.
All of us will refer to this phenomenon in a much more serious way. I must admit that until yesterday, as a cabinet minister, I thought to myself it would never happen in Israel. Nothing like that. I mean, all these security men are there actually in vain. We don't need them. From yesterday, I can say that we need them. And from yesterday, I can say that we should be much more effective referring to these fringe groups.
Saturday's assassination was the first of an Israeli leader in that nation's 47-year history. Many Israelis viewed Yitzhak Rabin as a leader in the truest sense of the word, someone who served as a guiding light in dark times. His death has left many feeling abandoned midway through a long journey. CNN's Gerald Kessel takes a closer look.
Amidst the national grieving, plenty of questions. But beyond the questions on every Israeli's lips, of the security lapses that allowed this to happen, of how it could happen in their once unified society, the earnest political questions about the future of the peace process, the future of the slender center-left coalition which mounted that peace strategy.
We are going to implement the agreement with the Palestinians. We are going to develop and to encourage the peace agreement with Jordan, and maybe we shall find a way to renew the dialogue with Syria. These are the main avenue of our policy. The assassination would not stop it because we owe it to Mr. Rabin not to stop but to continue.
During a week of mourning, there will be no overt politicking, but the pressures are building. How will pushing headlong on with peace affect the political conundrums for acting Premier Shimon Peres? Will he seek to expand the narrow base of his coalition or move for a speedy general election to capitalize on a sympathy vote? Either way, the immediate political pressure seems less on the government, more on its antagonists. Government ministers blame the right for fostering a vicious climate in its opposition to peace, for seeking to delegitimize Yitzhak Rabin.
The worst sort of instigation, and the outcome is as tragic as we know. Those who instigated against Rabin, who called him traitor, who called him murderer, they are guilty.
Right-wing politicians unreservedly denounce the assassination.
It is the time for responsibility and not for political allegations. We have decided in the Likud party that we will call upon the President of Israel to appoint Mr. Peres to be the next Prime Minister, so that it will become very clear that by murder you don't change governments. The murderer will not have achieved anything.
But still, the opposition has been left in something of a political quandary.
The right wing has definitely suffered a very serious blow, perhaps the most serious blow that it suffered since it lost the elections, because there is a tendency to somehow connect between the assassination and between some of the more virulent right-wing propaganda, including from the bigger Likud party. And I think there will be a backlash
Israelis are now uniting in their grief, but there must be some question as to how far that unity will stretch, as Yitzhak Rabin's colleagues seek to push the peace process with greater fervor than ever. Gerald Kessel, CNN, Jerusalem.
A world leader who championed the cause of peace in the Middle East is remembered for his contributions half a world away. Just ahead on this CNN special presentation, how the Rabin assassination is being viewed in the United States.
He was actually a rather shy and reticent man who had steeled himself to acts of extreme toughness.
Also, insights into Rabin's character that few people had an opportunity to observe. But first, a look at a watershed event in Yitzhak Rabin's career, the handshake deal that signaled a new era of Mideast peace.
Terrifying. 13 million kids are dying year in and year out. 35,000 a day. That's terrifying. It's up to each of us to reach them before hunger and disease kills one more. They cannot be beyond reach, not as long as there are people on this earth who still have hearts, not as long as there's an organization known as Child Reach. If anyone can reach them before it's too late, Child Reach can and does. With your help, they could reach them in 26 struggling countries with the tools for survival.
And to the world as he saw it, a gentleman, actually, once you got to know him, but basically rather shy.
I think you get at, Dr. Kissinger, one of the paradoxes of this man, someone who, as you described, was gentle and shy, and yet he was capable of acts of great toughness.
Well, but when he engaged in acts of great toughness, one had to ask oneself why he did that and what drove him to it. The fate of Israel is a tough fate, to live in a country, in an area that at its widest point between the Jordan and the sea is 50 miles wide, with people that reject the presence of Israel for reasons which one can grasp, and with the necessity of balancing the survival of a people that has, after all, suffered many tragedies with the dignity of its neighbors. That's not an easy assignment, but as I have known him over the 30 years, the process of learning was transformed into an act of leadership and into a vision. And he was not some starry-eyed idealist who was leading protests. He came to his convictions in a painful way, but once he had reached them, he was prepared to walk a very lonely road. I saw him last 2 weeks ago, and he was actually quite optimistic, but he also knew that it would be a bitter period, a very, with great vilification, and that it was always easy to state the risks without balancing them against the needs. But he thought that it would be a painful road that would lead to a conclusion, and I believe it still will. Rabin was a great man. And he had walked a lonely road. But But if what he did has to have any meaning, it cannot depend on him alone. And he came to this view. He never claimed that he alone understood something that no one else understood. He believed that he understood something that everybody would understand sooner or later. Peres has had a different role. I think he is a man of great intellectual strength, and he now has the responsibility, and I have every hope that he will be able to carry it out, but it would be idle to say that there isn't a huge void. But we should not, he knows what Rabin wanted to do, he saw it, and he has not rejected it. They had different roles. Then the moment came where Sadat came to Israel, and then that appeared at the White House lawn ceremony. As I said, I know him well. I know he hated to shake hands with Arafat. And he didn't know until the last minute whether he could bring himself to do it. But at the end of the process, at the last conversation with him, he knew that something had happened to Arafat, not necessarily because of a great spiritual insight, but because of the necessities of the situation. So what I'm saying is, this is not a prophet who came out of the wilderness with an insight that nobody had. He learned like his people did, and like his people will have to. And I think for this reason, it will not end with him.
Do you use ordinary Johnson's baby powder on your foot itch?
Your feet tend to sweat and get itchy and irritated. And Johnson & Johnson, I think that's more like a baby powder. I just put on the Gold Bond powder and it has that medicated feeling.
Unlike ordinary powders, Gold Bond's triple action formula has the absorbing action of powder, plus the medicating action of a proven itch fighter and the drying action of zinc oxide.
Gold Bond has that fresh, clean, tingly feeling. I lost the itch right away.
Gold Bond, more than a powder, it's medication.
Welcome to a new way to communicate. A new source of news, information, and software available through your computer 24 hours a day. This is the official America Online Tour.
Let me show you how America Online really works. You just point and click.
You've got mail.
Hey, I've got mail.
You can send and receive email even across the internet.
I've done that. Really?
Scan the latest headline, browse Time Magazine, find out what's on TV with ABC Online, look up facts in Compton's Encyclopedia. You can even explore the Smithsonian right on your computer.
My son gets help with his homework.
Call now for your free trial. You'll get free software and 10 hours of free online time your first month. America Online. It's knowledge. It's powerful.
And?
Okay, it's fun.
Call now for a no-obligation free trial of America Online. You'll get free startup software and 10 hours of free online time your first month. Call now 1-800-305-9966.
Now a look at some other stories making headlines. An armed intruder got as far as the Canadian Prime Minister's bedroom before being apprehended. Prime Minister Jean Chrétien says his wife came face to face with the man who broke into their Ottawa residence early Sunday morning.
She heard somebody walking in the house, and she didn't know what's going on, so she got up, and she saw a person in front of her, and she closed back the door very rapidly, came back to the room, and locked the other door, and that was waking me up. She called the police right away.
Police say the man who was armed with a knife got in by breaking a window with a rock. No one was injured. Officials say some 500 people are dead after Typhoon Angela tore through the Philippines. About 280 people are reported missing. Officials say they expect the death toll to mount as rescue teams dig out bodies from under the rubble of destroyed homes. Typhoon Angela is the strongest storm to hit the Philippines in 11 years. Polish President Lech Wałęsa, once trailing badly in the polls, stands a chance for re-election. Partial results from Sunday's election show Wałęsa less than 2 percentage points behind his main rival. A runoff is scheduled in 2 weeks. And a former communist power broker apparently has retained power in Georgia. According to early results, Edvard Shevardnadze, the former foreign minister of the Soviet Union, is winning re-election by a landslide. Shevardnadze will serve another 5 years as Georgia's president. The space shuttle Columbia is back on Earth after 16 days in orbit. That's the second longest flight in shuttle history. Columbia did capture one record with its laboratory research mission. It landed Sunday with the heaviest scientific load ever. The mission dealt with learning how to use the proposed International Space Station. The next flight, scheduled for launch Saturday, will focus on how to build it. The push for peace that claimed one more life in the Middle East, coming up on this CNN special edition. A look at the life of Yitzhak Rabin and what faces Israel after his fall. Also, Mr. Rabin progressed in his life from soldier to peacemaker. This is the ceremony awarding him, Shimon Peres, and Yasser Arafat the Nobel Peace Prize.
Sleep deprivation. 70 million Americans have experienced it, but you don't have to. Try maximum strength Sleep and All soft gels with the sleep aid preferred by 7 out of 10 doctors. Sleep and All soft gels help you fall asleep fast.
Sleepless nights due to interest rate jitters and fluctuating markets? Look at the difference business day makes. Only CNN prepares you with 60 minutes of financial news at 6 a.m. so you can rest comfortably and still bravely face the business day ahead.
In Jerusalem, police estimate 1/5 of the Israeli population will stream past Yitzhak Rabin's casket before his funeral procession gets underway. We have live pictures for you of thousands of mourners. They have paid their respects throughout the night. The viewing is scheduled to end in about half an hour. Later, Mr. Rabin's body will be taken to the Mount Herzl Cemetery for a state funeral. Yitzhak Rabin spent his youth as a warrior and his later years as a peacemaker. And even though he died far from battle, he is nonetheless a casualty of the hatred that sparks wars and splits nations. CNN's Bruce Morton explains.
The Middle East has seen.
He was a soldier. His drink was scotch, not Chardonnay. He was a soldier, which is probably why he worked so hard for peace, so that young Israelis his assassin's age wouldn't have to fight as many wars as he had fought. Old soldiers are like that, often. He was a soldier who knew that making swords into plowshares could be very dangerous work. He was a soldier who quoted Ecclesiastes.
To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven.
A time to mourn, the prophet wrote, and a time to dance. This is a time to mourn, of course. But the chapter goes on.
A time of war and a time of peace.
Which time is at hand for the Middle East? We cannot know. What we do know is that the Israelis have now joined a dreadful club. It is one thing to lose your young men in war. Most countries have done that. It is another to have your leader killed by one of your own. That hadn't happened to Israel before, and now it has. Americans who remember John Kennedy killed by an American know what that feels like. The sense of awfulness because it was one of your own, your family, that did it. Now the Israelis know that feeling too. The late Eric Sevareid wrote once of the special strength of the shameless. Shameless because they will stop at nothing. Assassins are shameless in that sense, consumed by belief, caring nothing for life. It is harder somehow when the shameless killer is one of your own. Bruce Morton, CNN, reporting.
This has been a special CNN presentation. I'm Porter Anderson in Atlanta. Our coverage of the Rabin assassination continues with CNN Newsroom next, and a look at some of the hundreds of thousands of mourners who have paid their respects to Yitzhak Rabin.
Duri-doo, dari-dari-dari-doo-doo. שדה ירוק ושם ישן. דורי-דורי-דורי-דו. הביר הרום עוטה מגן. דורי-דורי-דו. כלביו רובצים מרגלותיו. מכל משמר לשמור עליו.
Now you can watch the news the world watches. Worldview, the global newscast. Weeknights, 6 Eastern on CNN.
"50 years of the United Nations.
Since its founding 50 years ago, the United Nations has been a magnet for visitors from around the world. When the UN headquarters building in New York first opened its doors to visitors in 1952, the position of UN tour guide was a much sought-after job. More than 34 million visitors have walked through the corridors and halls where international issues are discussed. Many works of art donated by member countries adorn the walls and hallways. Now, 50 guides from all over the world give tours in over 20 languages. With the United Nations increasingly at the center of world affairs, the UN tour remains one of New York's main attractions.
This is CNN.
Israel in mourning.
Welcome to this special edition of Newsroom. I'm Tony Fraser and Cassandra is off. The Middle East is shrouded in a cloak of shock, uncertainty, and mourning. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was gunned down Saturday, his confessed assassin a fellow Jew. An estimated 1 million mourners filed past Mr. Rabin's body as he lay in state in front of the Parliament building. He'll be buried today. President and Mrs. Clinton left yesterday for the region, along with Presidents Jimmy Carter and George Bush, 2 former secretaries of state, and a bipartisan congressional delegation that included House Speaker Newt Gingrich and Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole. The 73-year-old prime minister was shot Saturday after speaking at a peace rally in Tel Aviv. Israeli police arrested a 25-year-old student, Yigal Amir, a Jewish right-wing extremist with no criminal record. Police say he wanted to stop the peace process. A teenager who attended the rally told CNN how he felt when he learned of the prime minister's death.
I know that I myself, my legs were so shaking I had to sit down on the floor, and all I could do was cry. It was terrible. It was everything I believed in, everything that I grew up to be an Israeli and to be. I see myself as an Israeli patriot. Everything that I ever believed in just broke into small pieces, and I didn't know what to do with myself.
CNN's Walter Rogers is in Jerusalem with more on reaction to the assassination. Then CNN's Mark Leff has more on the life of Yitzhak Rabin.
Prime Minister Rabin's body rested in a soldier's coffin outside the Israeli parliament. A few yards away, Rabin's widow, Leah, grief etched deeply into her face, was embraced by her son Yuval and her daughter Dalia. The endless stream of mourners began early in the afternoon and extended well into the night. The nation offered its prayers and its tears. There is no history of political assassination in Israel, and the inevitable question, what has become of us, was on many lips. In Tel Aviv, some sought solace in plaintive songs. Others lit candles, a Jewish tradition for the loss of a loved one. It was in this darkened square Saturday night that the assassin stalked Prime Minister Rabin. Rabin knew of the increased threats, but the old soldier would not wear a bulletproof vest. The man who stared down Arabs in 3 wars would not be intimidated by unseen danger lurking in a crowd. There were bodyguards, but they had not sealed off the area, and the confessed assassin, Yigal Amir, loitered aimlessly, posing as a driver in Rabin's motorcade.
As far as I know, they didn't have any indication of a plot, a general plan. So the theory was exactly what happened last night, the theory of the lone assassin.
Yigal Amir said he had no regrets. God ordered him to do it. The task of healing now falls to acting Prime Minister Shimon Peres, who was also a target of the assassin, but escaped because he left the rally early.
When the 7 days of mourning are over, the debate over the peace agreement with the Palestinians will resume. It was the hatred swirling around that debate which killed Yitzhak Rabin, and it will not disappear because of one political assassination.
Uri Severe helped write that peace agreement.
When a country comes to an historical crossroad to make an historical decision, it creates tremendous controversy. The alternative is to give up on historical decisions.
It now seems most unlikely that Israelis will give up on a cause for which they have paid so dearly. An assassin snuffed out the life of Yitzhak Rabin. Judging by the tens of thousands of mourners filing past his casket, there is no evidence Israelis have given up on the cause for which Rabin gave his life. Walter Rogers, CNN, Jerusalem.
Yitzhak Rabin began his public career as a soldier, the hardline hero and leader of his country's victory in the Six-Day War of 1967, and ended it as a peacemaker, and to some of his own people, a villain. In between, some remarkable firsts. The Israeli Army Chief of Staff, whose military victory led thousands of Palestinians to leave the land Israelis occupied in 1967, went to Washington as ambassador the next year and returned to Israel as a politician to become the country's first native-born prime minister, and also its youngest after the elections of 1974. Under pressure from the United States, he negotiated one of several agreements returning part of the captured Sinai Peninsula to Egyptian control. A scandal involving his wife's Washington bank account forced him out of the race for re-election in 1977 and helped usher in more than a decade of conservative Likud party rule. As defense minister in the compromise government of the mid-'80s, Rabin pulled Israeli forces out of most of Lebanon and applauded a visit to Morocco by his longtime Labor Party rival, Shimon Peres.
And it is possible to talk directly between leaders of Israel and Arab countries.
After the Palestinian uprising known as the Intifada began in 1987 in the Israeli-occupied territories, Yitzhak Rabin ordered Israeli troops to shoot to break demonstrators' bones, not to kill, but also began looking for a political solution that would stop short of creating a Palestinian state. By the election of mid-1992, the political tide in Israel had turned in Rabin's favor.
He has some kind of credibility, you know, from his past. I'm prepared to give him a chance.
And Israeli voters returned Rabin to the Prime Minister's office.
I believe that within 6 to 9 months, it will be possible to reach an agreement with the Palestinian delegation about the establishment of autonomy.
The difficult negotiating process that followed led to the signing of an agreement in Washington that took 15 months. And to a reluctant handshake with a man he'd long called a terrorist, now his new Palestinian peace partner. The agreement had its price, violence on both sides. But as Egypt observed the 20th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, Rabin, Yasser Arafat, and Egypt's president were pushing on with negotiations.
Arafat
There were also honors. For Yitzhak Rabin, a share of the 1994 Nobel Peace Prize, and more agreements on new links between Israel and Jordan that would lead to a formal peace, on Israel's withdrawal from the West Bank.
We should not let the land flowing, the land that flowing with milk and honey become a land flowing with blood and tears. Don't let it happen.
And just a month ago, the world watched yet another signing ceremony in Washington, bringing Yitzhak Rabin closer to his goal of peace with a longtime adversary, but no closer to fulfilling a wish he'd expressed a year ago.
And that finally no one will photograph our handshakes. It will have become part of the routine of our lives.
Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, dead at 73. Mark Leff, CNN, reporting.
I am very sad and very shocked for this awful and terrible crime against one of the brave leaders of Israel and the peacemakers. I hope that they will have the ability, all of us, the Israelis and the Palestinians, will have the ability to overcome this tragedy.
He saw himself as a general, both of fight and a general of peace fight, so to say. That is my impression. I mean, his mentality was that he was generally a soldier of Israel.
I want the world to remember what Prime Minister Rabin said here at the White House barely 1 month ago. And I quote, "We should not let the land flowing with milk and honey become a land flowing with blood and tears. Don't let it happen." Now it falls to us, all those in Israel, throughout the Middle East, and around the world who yearn for and love peace, to make sure it doesn't happen.
This is not a prophet who came out of the wilderness with an insight that nobody had. He learned like his people did, and like his people will have to. And I think for this reason, it will not end with him.
The landmass making up Israel is considered sacred ground by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And both the Arabs and Jews say the area is theirs by birthright. But why is there a state of Israel when there is no state of Palestine? 12 Jewish tribes roamed the land of Canaan until about 1000 BC, when they were unified as the Kingdom of Israel under King David. The Romans conquered Canaan in 63 BC, renamed it Palestine, and drove out most of the Jews. Muslim Arabs took over the region 450 years later and introduced the Islamic religion. The late 1800s gave rise to a movement called Zionism. Zionists urged European Jews to migrate to Palestine and reclaim their homeland. Jewish immigrants continued to pour into Palestine in the 1930s, fleeing Nazi persecution under Adolf Hitler. Some 6 million Jews died in World War II, stepping up the pressure to create a Jewish state. In November 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. An Arab revolt touched off the first Arab-Israeli war. Despite the fighting, Israel was born on May 14, 1948. By 1949, Israel had conquered most of the land intended for the Arab state. Border clashes between Israel and its Arab neighbors continued 2 more decades. In the mid-1960s, several Arab groups united to form the Palestine Liberation Organization, a guerrilla movement who sought an independent Palestine. On June 5, 1967, Israel attacked its Arab neighbor, Egypt. The treaty that ended that conflict, known as the Six-Day War, gave Israel the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, and the Golan Heights. Israel's army moved into the territories. In their anger, leaders from the Arab world began to support the PLO movement. In 1977, with the help of President Jimmy Carter, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin held peace talks. 2 years later, they signed a peace agreement and agreed to seek a broader peace for the region. The accord also called for 5 years of Palestinian self-rule in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. But the Israeli government was divided on the issue, and self-rule did not happen. In 1987, riots broke out in the occupied territories and lasted 6 years. Yitzhak Rabin's Labor Party came to power in 1992, and the new prime minister vowed to make Palestinian autonomy a reality. Limited self-rule began in Gaza and Jericho in May 1994. Just weeks ago, Israeli troops began withdrawing from Jenin, and Israeli troops are scheduled to withdraw from 5 more West Bank towns by the year's end. It will be up to Israel's new leaders to make that happen. Well, that's it on this special edition of our show. Worldview is next. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We leave you with more from the Rabin assassination over the weekend.
דורי 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 דור שחורים משחור שלושתם היו דורי דורי דור לשני רעב אמר אחד היכן בבוקר זה נסעד דורי דור דרי 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 דודו שדה ירוק ושם ישן דורי 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 דור הביר הרוב עודי מגן דורי דורי דור כלביו רובצים מרגלותיו מכל משמר לשמור עליו דורי דור דרי דרי דרי.
After war and famine, a triumph of the spirit in Ethiopia.